What's going on, Soul Nation, and welcome to another New World Aeternum video. My name is Brian if you happen to be new around here, but today I want to talk to you guys everything that I like and everything that I wish would change or I don't like about New World Aeternum, especially as it relates to the launch. Now, don't worry, this coming week we're going to be talking about the state of the game. Once we get some real numbers of the game, what happens of course over this weekend, I think that's going to be really interesting to break down, so we'll have that video rocking and rolling out for you guys next week, followed by we're also going to be doing some Final Fantasy 14 state of the game, 7 reasons why to play PAX Day, and then of course we've got some upcoming videos regarding Ashes of Creation and Pantheon. We're going to be sure to cover all of that here for you guys, and if you like MMORPG news, if you like MMO discussions, if you like guides and more, you're in the right place. And if I earn your sub, that's what I want to do. Sound off in the comments below like these incredible people here. Welcome in, everybody, and welcome back. As an interesting aside, I'd like to highlight these 5 amazing people. YouTube is now starting to kind of give this sense of community. These updates are going to be rolling out, so we're going to keep you guys up to date. And a huge shout out to Merc with over 100 comments on the channel over the course of a week. So thank you so much for the engagement and the support, and we'll see how these names, if these change or if these are our top 5 super fans, we will find out for sure. But let's dive into the reason why you clicked on the video in the first place. Brian, what do you like? That's how we're going to structure it. Part 1. Part 2 is what do you not like, and we're going to have kind of like an intermission a little bit talking about the numbers, because I've seen a lot of interesting takes about the numbers already online. So again, the state of the game, following it up next week, we'll have a better picture of what that looks like in the long run. Let's start with what I like. I feel like this has been the smoothest of smooth launches for the game. There's been a handful of bugs. They have done some patches and some maintenance, but all in all, every time I sit down to log into the game, I'm able to do so. And this is on the consoles and this is on PC. I was able to sit down yesterday and got my character created over on Rosa on the Xbox. And just as a heads up, guys, I am not the person who was originally on Rosa. Somebody said that they were talking to me in game on Rosa and I had yet to create a character. So is a high possibility that somebody is emulating me in these games. And so just note that my general character name is Bryn Zalazar. The Rosa character I created just to try and lock it down was Ginger Prime TV. So if somebody out there is pretending to be me, hopefully they're nice, because then it would suck if they were otherwise, and because you know what, the internet will just believe whatever the first story they hear most times. And so I'd like to make sure I get out ahead of that. So if you guys see that happening, just be aware of that. Anyway, smooth ass launch, right? Like this has been, I think, incredible to see. And when we look at the server numbers themselves, we can see the fact is like there's a lot of the servers with high population and medium population, and I think this is a really good thing. The nice thing about high, medium, and low population servers is that you're not cut off from content because they have the cross server matchmaking. With some exceptions, the raid right now is not match made. It is there is no cross world party finder to try and build that out without having to do server transfers. That is something that we're going to talk about in the second part of this video for sure. But I have to say, absolutely freaking adore the free-for-all PvP as well. This zone is interesting and fun, and I haven't pushed super far into it. Obviously, the further you go in, the bigger the risk and the bigger the reward, and then obviously the difficulty in which you're getting back into or out of the zone itself. But I find it very refreshing. I find the tension of opening a treasure box to be rather intense. Like I'm like, all right, just kind of constantly keeping my head on a swivel. I've gotten into a few skirmishes and it's free for all. And so it's going to be interesting to see, because ultimately strategies will obviously evolve when we sit down to play this game together as a community. And if we all want to go into the free for all zone, that's a loose alliance. We could definitely be aligned, but maybe somebody betrays somebody and then you end up having that whole aspect. It's going to be interesting to see, and I really hope that a lot of people actually do enjoy this, and then I would love to see them take a server and just make a server free for all, and so we could see what that looks like, because I don't think free for all is what everybody always wants all the time, and that's fair. but I think essentially it would be really cool to say, hey, you know, like we got fresh start servers, like we got legacy servers, this is going to be the free-for-all PvP server, if nothing more than a straight up experiment to see how it feels and how it plays and how people respond to it. Now, building off of the PvP free-for-all, we have match-made arenas. Now, we've had matchmaking for Outpost Rush for a while, and that's the 20v20. 3v3 arenas feels way more personal, and it honestly has a lot of really good things to offer. Now, in the long run, having different maps and more, I think will actually play out in, you know, kind of the gamer's favor, and I do expect that we'll see some of that rolling out hopefully here in the near future. But I love that it's match made, and I love that it's cross server, because this gives us as players more opportunities to jump in on all the different servers. So the low population servers, you can have a really great experience, because some people actually want the lower population servers, and now they're not going to be cut off from jumping into 3v3 arena. So it removes that level of punishment. So I really do appreciate that change. I did run into one bug when playing at the start, but I'm not too worried about it. It didn't seem to be to affect us too horribly in a negative way. All right, let's talk about another thing I love: the look and the feel of the game. This game runs incredibly smooth. I've been playing as a part of the DirectX 12 like beta that they have rocking and rolling, and I cannot say enough good things. The sound, the visuals, the beauty, it's so much fun. It's so relaxing to go out into the world, whether you want to go craft and gather, whether you want to go run expeditions, whether you want to go do PvP. I think for the new player, this game is a really easy recommendation. People saying, hey, should I get the game? Is it worth it? If you're brand new for $60, yes, it translates incredibly well in terms of just a value proposition of fun and a world to explore for $60. Easy recommend. For the veteran players, I get the critique, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the next section. Also, I love the expeditions. You know, we've had cross, you know, server expeditions for a little while, but the increasing population return has reduced the overall time needed to get a match for the expeditions. This all builds up into, though, like regardless of expedition, regardless of you're talking about the raid, the game absolutely needs some form of cross server party finding system, so that whether you're doing the raid or an expedition, if we want to pre-make a party and you're not on my server, it would be really cool to be able to post that and have you join in, and then we can go into the expedition. So that's going to be something that I'm going to be campaigning for as just a feature, as a tool of these games, so that way it just gives a lot more flexibility and allows for more content offerings and options rather than playing the server transfer game. Now, let's talk a little bit about the numbers. I said there was going to be a little bit of intermission. I think this is kind of a real kind of key perspective. I looked at it, and one of the things I was actually looking at is I like to also really heavily look at the hours played. On launch day, over 887,000 hours were played on that day alone. And so if you make the assumption that every one of those players played 24 hours, that would give you a player base of 36,970, which honestly seems pretty cool. But obviously not everybody played, because we see not everybody played 24 hours. We do see that peak of 53,958, which is well above what I was originally hoping for, because when we talk about it, I was thinking, I think we're going to get to that February 2022 numbers, which is around 32,000, which at the time in the screen cap you can see here is around 32,000, and the average continues to go up. Now, the percentage gain, when we start talking about 90% gain so far, this is going to be very, very high due just to how low the population did get. So jumping up to, from 3,000 to 8,000, yeah, it does feel like a huge percentage gain, but it isn't that big of a volume. But this is going to keep increasing over the course of the month. What we're going to be looking for this weekend, and what we're going to be talking about in the next state of the game, is does the peak players peak out even higher over the course of the weekend when more people have more time to play? That's what we're going to be kind of watching for and waiting for. In regards to, does this mean that the game is bad. No, I think this doesn't mean the game is bad. I think this means that the game is really targeting new players right now. And hopefully what this means is that the next phase of development focuses in on the veteran players, because I get, and I don't think any vet who sits down and says that they're not enjoying the game, or they're not happy, or they're not coming back because they don't feel like the content offering is there for them. I think that's a perfectly valid critique of the game and the state of the game at the moment. But we'll have to see. We'll explore it again in next week, and hopefully you guys come back and check out that video. Now let's talk about the things I don't like. Obviously, I think one key aspect is no real way to cross server outside of matchmaking. And if they're able to go and add that into the game, I would like it not just for the raid. I would like it not just for the instance content, but even to a degree the open world content, just giving us more flexibility. I do wonder if we're going to go in that general direction, but time will tell, and we'll get a better picture of what to expect when we get the updated roadmap. The fact that we still don't have the updated roadmap, even though I would expect that they might release that sometime after the Trials of Aeternum ends, roughly in November, it is still something that I, as a veteran player, I feel like they owe us. And that's one of the things that I really don't like, because we're still, saying, like, I do have confidence that the game is going to continue on. I think the numbers actually look very healthy for a 3-year-old MMO, especially because this doesn't track the console player base, and the servers being, a lot of servers hitting that high population, especially during peak hours. Does show that there is a big interest in the game, and there's a lot to do. So we're going to see a lot of people have a lot of hours, and if we can get any real insight into the true numbers of it, we'll be sure to talk about it here. But I do feel like we are doing okay at this point in time. As a vet, obviously I enjoy this game. The amount of time that I put into it really does kind of ring true. I'm enjoying playing this latest season. It's a shorter season, so I'm really hopeful that the winter season that kicks off here in roughly 45 days does bring new content, new expeditions, new things to do in the game. And I hope that we don't see these seasonal stories that they did, or they tried to do back in the day, make a return. I think anything that they add to the game outside of like the battle pass, and I would still prefer the battle pass to have a level of permanence, I think they should continue to exist, because it just seems like wasted development time to try and create or artificially create FOMO, which is the fear of missing out, for anybody who doesn't know. It's a sales tactic. It's not necessarily a good sales tactic, but it is an effective sales tactic for sure. So hopefully we can see them get away from that. I don't like that we did not get any new weapons. I don't like that they're outside of the raid, which I haven't been able to do yet just due to a life schedule. And that's just a natural factor of my existence with 6 kids and with, a job and with everything that I try to get accomplished in any given period of time. It's very clear to see that these things probably aren't going to be content that I'm able to jump into. Not that I'm advocating for matchmaking in the raid, mind you, because when you add matchmaking, you have to sacrifice a piece of that content. So I'm perfectly fine with them there being a piece of content that isn't made for me, but hopefully I'll be able to rectify that. And if you're interested in doing the raid, sound off, jump in the Discord. I'd love to have you in the community, and hopefully we can team up and try and get that done. But the lack of new weapons, the lack of a new expedition, the lack of those features is a little bit frustrating. They can't go and redo the starting experience. The starting experience, I think they've really done a good job with it. Sitting down on my Xbox and playing through a little bit of it, it feels very welcoming. It feels very enjoyable. But when it's all said and done, that should be done. When it's when I'm looking at the state, like where the game feels the weakest, it is in its season pass. It is in its journey card. I want to see more asynchronous ways that the game continues to remind you that you're kind of taking part in a bigger story in a bigger world. And this would be like, the way to rectify that is add a shared seasonal journey card like they're doing with the Trials of Aeternum, even though that's manually outside of the game. But have it where, based off of everything that we're doing, our server is maybe slightly competing against another server just for bragging rights, so to speak. Hey, our servers progressed this far. Obviously, bigger servers would accomplish things in a much faster way, but it's still just something nice to say, hey, you know what? As a part of the latest season, I contributed 10 expedition runs to the overall goal of, 1,000 expedition runs. Yeah, that feels interesting to me. And I think that could add a lot of value. The activities in which that the season also offers would be, I think, something I would like to see more investment into how that functions. I find that it does tend to change the way that I play the game. And so instead of doing kind of the more relaxing thing, I feel like I am on the clock. And that's where the season pass, I think, really should evolve into, maybe they only sell it during the season, but if you own the season pass, you should be able to keep the season pass and grind on that season pass, and that would be something I think would help offset that sense of like, I better be doing the things on this list so that way I can progress the season pass. And then when I'm done, then I'm good. I don't prefer that. That's something that's been a long standing gripe of myself. The other aspect is that we still haven't seen player aptitude levels. We still haven't seen weapon aptitude levels. And I would love to see those kind of systems brought into the game that are more cosmetic driven than anything else, but still that as you gain experience at level cap, you still gain experience. There is still a level of system that is going on behind the scenes, even if it isn't giving you any power. In fact, I think that any post-leveling system shouldn't actually give you any power. It should just be primarily for bragging rights, and maybe just you get some really cool titles or some various different ways that you can kind of spec out your character. I think when we talk about like the UI, the fact is we still don't have the ability to customize the UI. This would be a huge win in my book for them to go in and bring in a system that would let you tailor the UI to your preference and what you ultimately prefer. That all being said, upgrades to the UI could also then tie into the post leveling system. Imagine having the party UI tool being able to be upgraded with different kind of plates and things that you could kind of highlight so that when you're in a group, things like that show up. The other thing that I would say is that while it's great that we have gear sets, I really think we need to see that system evolve into a build style system where when you switch it, it does change your attributes. It does change maybe even your skills. So for example, if I wanted to have a PvP healer build versus a PvE healer build, I could spec those out and change those out and easily swap between the two if necessary. And so I'd like to see that kind of system ultimately brought into the game alongside everything that I have currently personally shared about changes that I'd like to see made. I think the content that they produce, I like the story, I like the world, I like the aspects. I think the last thing I would add is mock wars and mock invasions. I think those are two pieces of content that are truly gatekept, that when you talk about getting slotted into a piece of content, I think that ends up meaning that a lot of people miss out. And this also kind of somewhat applies to the influence race wars, where they take part in a certain time. I think that it's fine to have the race wars, the influence race wars. I think it's perfectly fine to have those where it's timed. I just think that there should be another system that is taking place 24/7, and then as you're playing asynchronously in the background of everything that we're doing, you are contributing to those races. You are contributing to the overall piece of it. Now, it's a smaller contribution when weighed against the whole, but it still keeps you involved. So even if you're crafting and gathering, you're still taking part in perhaps some kind of capture or territory ownership, but indirectly, and again, maybe just a small amount of points, but that could be enough to sway it in the long run. I'd be very curious as to see if they continue to evolve that system. All I know is that I don't necessarily get to play all the time, and I don't get to take part in those activities, and I like to see more opportunities, especially for mock wars, to be brought in to open up that game mode to people who are intimidated. I'm intimidated to step in and try to get slotted because I haven't done it, and there's seasoned people who are doing that pieces of content. And as time goes on, the ability to go and practice a war and learn the systems and more would be very, very, very helpful for me as a veteran player, but also to new players out there as well. Now, this video has obviously gone a little bit long, and hopefully you've enjoyed. We like to wrap up with our message of hope. This is again me encouraging you to focus in on three key pillars of your life: your spiritual health, your mental health, and your physical health. These are three key things that I think we can easily get out of balance. And when we get out of balance, it can cause, a lot of devastation in our lives. Depression and anxiety are no joke. And I think you should take those things seriously, especially if you're going through them. I've shared in previous videos and will continue to share my struggle with seasonal depression and how I use vitamin D and exercise. And there are life hacks that we can make. And I like to try and give you guys those tips in different videos, and we'll keep talking about it. But today I want to kind of build off of what I talked about over on Ginger Prime the other day with masculinity. The TLDR is that I think that masculinity's true definition is when it's in service to others, whether that's your family, your community, to an ideal that you aspire to. And that's really what masculinity is for. And it applies to the idea that you do want to be healthy. You want to lift weights and be strong, because in service to, that gives you the ability to take care of others, to protect and defend others. The same thing kind of goes with marriage and with budgeting and all of these things, right? So it's not bad to have lots of sex. It's actually a really good thing in its proper context. It's not bad to go and make money, because that allows you to provide and be generous, right? So when we structure our masculinity in service to others, that is where we thrive and hopefully this is where we can start to kind of fight back against this idea that being a man is a bad thing. It isn't. However, there is definitely some abuses that happen. Some messages get twisted online. Some products are trying to be sold which don't necessarily represent what it means to be a man. And so that's one thing I just kind of talked about. So that's the TLDR. Today I want to highlight this on this image. It's a really great quote. If you knew how quickly people would forget about you after your death, you will not seek in your life to please anyone but God. And this is from John Chrysostom. Hopefully I'm not butchering it. Back in circa 387. This is such an interesting quote, and I want to end this video, this message of hope on this. Whether you believe in God or if you don't, for me, this is something that is incredibly peaceful to think about. In this life, whatever reason, the skill that I have naturally possessed is I don't care what people think about me. And I wish everybody can kind of have that. My wife wishes that I had a little bit, like where it was maybe 99% and then maybe there was 1%. But in my life, it's not about, trying to impress anybody. It's not trying to, like so many people do have that burden. And I would say it is a cross. If you feel like you have to constantly impress strangers, like that sounds so stressful to me. But I like this quote a lot, because who are we to please? Like, what is the overall goal? And me as a Christian really do want to say that, like, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, the only person I really need to answer to in this case is God. And so I try to organize all of that with that mindset. So I would encourage you to be free of the burden that we put on ourselves of trying to impress each other. That's not the goal. Try and live a life that you feel will, at the end of the day, leave you with as little regrets as possible. Whether that's you chasing after trying to please God, or it's a ideal that you said, you know what, I did everything I could, the best that I could, and I left it on the field, and I won some and I lost some. Most likely, because of the way the world is, maybe we win some and maybe we lose a lot. But that's just a part of our shared humanity and our shared experience. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for hanging out. And hopefully you got something good out of the video or out of the message of hope. And hopefully I will see you guys in the next video. But until then, take care.